You're watching Black the Vote Digital Housing Forum. My name is Katrina Holland, Executive Director of Community Alliance of Tenants.
And I'm Hannah Holloway, Policy Staff with the Urban League of Portland.
So as you know, there is a lot wrapped up in this November's election. Our values as Oregonians are on the ballot. The housing crisis continues to crumble our communities. And so a group of us Black-led organizations came together to have some real talk with candidates and with people in the know about some of the issues on the ballot. Issues like Black houselessness, issues like access to home ownership, renters, luxury units that are vacant while homeless people are sleeping on the streets. And so we really wanted a chance to dive in and ask some really tough questions. We hope that you'll learn a lot.
Also, a quick note, we as nonprofits take our C3 statuses very seriously. In that effort, we made every attempt to get all candidates to this forum. We made repeated phone calls, emails, moved our schedules and our formatting around in an effort to get everyone here. So the candidates that you will hear from are the candidates who were able to make time for this Black Housing Forum.
We hope that you enjoy. Feel free to share it, send it to your friends, send it to your family, ask tough questions, and make sure that you get out your vote on November 6th.
This is Black the Vote Digital Housing Forum, and I'm here with Robin Yee to talk about Measure 103. Robin, would you mind introducing yourself and your involvement with the campaign?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Yee. I work as the political organizer for APANO, the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. We're based in Southeast Portland. We've been in the community for decades. We're a social justice political advocacy group that's working on a lot of these elections. And we serve, communities of color and specifically Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders here in our state.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
So if Measure 103 passes, what would it do?
Yeah, so what Measure 103 says on paper is that it's trying to, it's trying to ban state and local taxes on corporations that sell and distribute groceries, right? But what we like to say is this is a fake problem. This is they have an answer and they're looking for a problem to try to trick voters into believing that these grocers are concerned about poor folks or people like you and I who are just trying to make the best out of it out here, right? So what this does is allows big corporations to define what groceries are and then for them to not pay taxes on this for decades, right? Because they're trying to amend the Oregon Constitution, and anytime we amend the Constitution, right, that locks things in for a really long time. So if you look at who's supporting Measure 103, it's the biggest grocers in the country, right? Kroger, Costco, Walmart. And they're trying to define what groceries are and then which groceries they want to pay taxes on, right? So
okay.
They talk about food because that's obviously a big concern for people, right? How are we going to put food on the dinner table? But they choose to say, okay, well, diapers are exempt, but not like soap, right? Feminine hygiene products are not exempt, but gas is, right? And anybody who's involved in, the business chain is also exempt, and that doesn't make any sense, right? So really, Measure 103 is trying to give special treatment to the biggest corporations who've already, get really great treatment from, the federal government and from our tax structure and trying to convince folks that this measure is about them.
Okay, so it's a permanent constitutional tax break
Yes.
for grocers.
Yes.
What impact would it have on everyday Oregonians if passed?
Yeah, so I think the danger is we really don't know. It's the measure is written, really unclearly. It's trying to amend the Constitution, and what we do know is that it won't change any prices that we currently, pay. It's not going to make anything cheaper. It won't change anything. What we do know what will happen is that, as our state grows and we have more needs and services, that the biggest grocers won't be chipping in, right? They will be not paying any more taxes on the things that they get to define. Whereas, the needs in our state aren't gonna, be smaller over the next few years. So I think that individual Oregonians will pick up the tab, right? And we know, that anytime big corporations get huge tax breaks, like look what happened at the federal government the past year, right? $1.5 trillion to some of the biggest corporations. We don't see any prices change for us, right, when we go to the store. So we're not getting any benefits anytime big corporations get tax breaks.
And I noticed part of the measure, it's actually retroactive, I believe back to 2017, yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what impact can you briefly explain what the retroactive element of this measure is and what impact that will have.
Yeah, definitely. So not only are we amending the Constitution, right, locking something in, it's really unclear why it's, retroactive, as in it goes backwards in time and says anything that was passed after an arbitrary date. I think they said like October 1st, 2017, right? That doesn't mean anything to anyone, right? Any taxes after that would also be gotten rid of, right? And so they're saying that we want a permanent tax break in the future, and we also want it to go back in time to, protect themselves from maybe other pieces of the tax code that like normal everyday Oregonians like won't have any clue about, right? So they're trying to change the future and go back and get rid of who knows what, right? We just don't know. And that's, I think, a good enough reason to vote no.
And I believe there are certain local jurisdictions in Oregon, Yachats, and a couple other places in Oregon that have taxes on food and beverage at the local level. What impact would it have on those municipalities that do already have something in place like that?
Yeah, so there's two local measures that I know about. So there's one in Ashland and Yachats, right? And those are kind of like tourism-based kind of taxes on like, restaurants, and because a lot of people go there, and that's how the cities can get enough revenue, right? They made it, I think, retroactive so that the Ashland and the Yachats won't be impacted by Measure 103. So I think that's why they picked the day. They said, well, the things that we know that if they took away from the cities, voters would be angry, people would think that's unfair. They said, let's just pick the day where that went into effect and say, everything after that is no longer qualifies, but they get to keep those local ballot measures, right?
I see.
So it's just like there's really no explanation for the day, but it seems like that's probably why. It was just pure kind of politics.
Interesting. Okay. And you keep mentioning that this measure would be a constitutional change and a constitutional tax exemption. Are there other industries besides the grocer industry in Oregon that have constitutional tax rights?
No corporation, no industry, not even healthcare, right, has any sort of like, no industry gets to choose which taxes it gets to pay, right, in Oregon. You and I certainly don't get to choose what things we want to pay taxes to and don't. So I don't know why the biggest grocers, some of the biggest corporations in the state, should get to like write the laws to which they'll decide if they pay or not. Because we know exactly how that will go, right? If the grocers are able to get away with this, what industry is next, right? Gas, finance, right? Some of the biggest people. We just don't know, and I think that's good enough reason to vote no.
Okay. And how will this appear on the ballot? Do you know the official ballot title?
Yeah, I have it right here. So, in your ballots, when you read the explanation and when you fill in the yes or no bubble, it'll read, Measure 103 amends the Constitution, prohibits taxes and fees based on transactions from groceries as defined, and then you have to go into the fine print to see like what qualifies, what doesn't. And it prohibits taxes, including those on sellers and distributors, enacted and amended after September 2017, right? So there's like so many different parts. So not only is it like, the grocery store where you actually buy it, it's like anybody who like, maybe transported that, those vegetables to that place, right?
Okay.
And that, then that doesn't make sense. Then also it goes to a random date, September 2017, which seems like perfectly, picked to avoid certain things, but then, take advantage of others.
Is there anything else you think Black voters should know about Measure 103?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this measure is fundamentally about fairness, right, and values. I think messengers really matter. So, you should think about who do you trust more, right? Community advocates like Apano, like all the groups, hundreds of community-based organizations that are working to defeat this measure, right? Are you going to trust them who will ride or die are with the community advocating for what's best, right, for our families? Or are you going to trust big grocers who suddenly now seem to care about the poor, who are, dumping millions of dollars into trying to give themselves, an eternal tax break? Like, which side are you going to believe? And I think we've played this out so many times, in Oregon and at the federal level, that we know that when, big businesses, groceries included, right, when they get a sweet deal, we don't see any of that, right? And it's about fairness. So why should big corporations get to choose what they pay taxes on and get to define what counts as groceries, right? You and I don't get to do that. I don't think it's fair that big corporations do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here, Robin.
Yeah, thank you.